Hey guys, what is up? My name is Lifer and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the controversy surrounding Alatreon. If you didn't already know, Alatreon came out about a month ago on July 9th. And yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about why a lot of players hated Alatreon from the start at least. It seems like now a lot of people have warmed up a little bit. It doesn't seem as bad as a fight as a lot of people originally thought. And yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about what exactly happened, what made Alatreon so hated from the beginning, and what kind of changed. So, Alatreon is a wonderful fight. He's an awesome monster, one of a fan favorite monster from the older generations. I believe appeared in Generation 3, in Monster Hunter 3. So, yeah, what exactly happened? Why was Alatreon so hated from the beginning? Well, I would say it comes down to just the way his fight works. So Alatreon has this supernova type move that a lot of other monsters also have, like Brachydius, Raging Brachydius. Lunastra also has a supernova type, but where these one-shot supernovas really begun was kind of with Behemoth. Behemoth is the one notable exception where his supernova, you can't really dodge it in a way. You can't do like the Superman dodge it. You have to use the mechanics that is kind of baked in with the fight, which is hiding behind the rocks to avoid his supernova. And sometimes, especially with extreme Behemoth, there'd be points where maybe rocks wouldn't spawn properly, or they'd be destroyed, and you wouldn't have any way to really avoid that supernova. You could do the emote that came with Behemoth, which allows you to jump up and avoid that move, but that has to be kind of timed perfectly. Not everyone uses it. But with Alatreon, his fight's a little different. His supernova requires you to deal enough elemental damage, hit a certain threshold, and then his supernova will be significantly weakened once you hit that threshold. And a lot of players were having difficulty reaching that threshold because, one, elemental damage isn't really used too much, and a lot of people built around elemental damage. So a lot of people went in with their, sets that they've been using since, who knows, when they beat the game, moving on, because you didn't really need to think around elemental damage too much. So yeah, Alatreon was kind of hated for that reason. You had to really build your set differently, and a lot of people kind of hated that you had to build it specifically around elemental damage. It was later seen that you didn't really need to build around elemental damage. There were ways to combat his fight without building huge amounts of elemental damage. You can see multiple speedruns with no armor sets, just naked runs, or like just using the Kinsect, using Insect Life, just using the Kinsect to beat Alatreon. So there are a lot of ways to do it, but a lot of players are peeved when Alatreon came out because of that supernova move. A lot of people were having troubles with it, and not a lot of people hit that threshold, and his HP, just doing it solo, was quite high. And this seems to be a trend. And in my opinion, I kind of thought about this, and from what I've seen, there's one big issue that kind of stands out with all these new monsters that are coming out. So for me, in my opinion, I feel the main issue is the master rank restriction for all these new monsters. And you may have noticed this too. All the new monsters that have been coming out post Iceborne have the restriction for the master rank has been MR24. Now, why is that? That seems kind of weird when the last base Iceborne monster, the monster that's in Iceborne that didn't require a patch, Ruiner Nergigante, that requires MR100 to fight. And he's a pretty difficult fight on its own, right? So why is it that Ruiner Nergigante, one of the harder fights, I'd say, for players, officially the last fight in the Iceborne base game, why does he require MR100? So why are all these new monsters the ones that have been coming out with the new title updates, why do they require MR24? Like Raging Brachydius, Stygian Zenogre, and all these new monsters called Teroth. Why do they only require MR24? Well, the reason I feel is because Capcom doesn't really want to limit people from trying out these new monsters. They want the largest amount of players to be able to access these new monsters, to come back and, you know, just jump in and try these new monsters out. And a lot of people I've seen, like, we're not talking about the hardcore or the really dedicated fan base. We're talking about kind of the casual fan base. Typically, most people will play through the game, and I've seen this with my friends. Some of my friends who have tried out Monster Hunter World. And they'll beat Iceborne, they'll beat the base game, they'll beat Iceborne's base game, and they'll kind of just stop after that, after MR24, which is the end of the main storyline for Iceborne. So they'll stop around MR24, and, you know, maybe they'll play on and off, but after that, that's where kind of the real grind begins, where you'll have to start doing the guiding lands, start raising your MR to, you know, at least 100 so you can fight all the other monsters, like Silver Rathalos, Gold Rathian, and Ruiner Nergigante. So you do have to be significantly higher MR to fight all the other monsters, but, you know, most people, after that, there's not really there's not really any guiding factor to for players right after that, after this main story. You're kind of left on your own. You kind of have to figure out what to do. Most people will do the guiding lands, others will maybe complete all the optional quests, which is a good idea to do. And yeah, and some people will just kind of fall out and kind of quit, because after that, really, they've, in theory, have fought all the monsters already, right? So after that, it's kind of just pure grind, which is fair, right? Even I had this kind of mindset too. After I beat the game, I took a fairly long break because I was kind of done with the game. I wanted to, you know, have a little break. Didn't want to get burnt out, so I didn't play as much after the main story, which is fine, right? And what has brought me back is obviously these title updates with these new monsters. You want to check them out. They're hyped. You see all like so much promotion about them, so yeah, of course you want to get back into it. And that's kind of Capcom's strategy with World and Iceborne, is to get players back through these title updates and maybe get new players in as well, which is not a bad strategy. But what it does is it creates this split in the player base, where you have a more casual crowd that's coming back every so often, but they don't have crazy upgraded gear like other players that have played a lot, who maybe didn't stop playing after Iceborne's main story. You have them who have done like all the guiding lands, have gone their regions all fully leveled up, have fully upgraded their armor and whatnot. So you have that player base, and then the casual player base who hasn't really done on that, but wants to experience these monsters. And for the most part, typically, most players can get by with the armor set that they completed. I'm sure they'll have better armor set once they fought some other monsters like Stygian Zenogre. Stygian Zenogre isn't like too difficult, but that brings up the issue when you have the significantly stronger monsters. And there's a trend. If you take a look at the HPs of all the monsters that have been released, all the new title update monsters, you can see that there has been an increase in HP. Teroth is a notable one. Teroth has around 50,000 HP solo. It's not scaled to multiplayer, so you don't have to do multiplayer, but it has such high HP for a title update monster. And yes, technically it's supposed to be done with a group. It makes it a lot easier, and you can't solo it, but for the average player, it's pretty hard to deal that much damage, 50,000. And it's even harder for Alatreon because of that elemental threshold. So that kind of, you know, you can kind of see the picture forming now. You have new players who come back and want to experience these new monsters, especially Alatreon. You have a lot of veterans who play in Monster Hunter 3, 4, and have fond memories of Alatreon and want to experience this fight. And, you know, you get kind of peeved because you have this essentially threshold requirement for elemental damage that you have to hit, or else you basically can't complete this fight. Well, in the past, really, you have the whole time limit. You have that 50 minutes. So you should be able to just kind of work your way through it with just dealing damage. You don't have to worry about these limits, I suppose, like these elemental, elemental threshold for Alatreon. So it does bring in a good debate whether is this the right way that Monster Hunter World should be going, and it's really hard to say. It does remind me a lot of like an MMO mechanics. MMO boss fights do have some of these mechanics that World is introducing, where you have to hit a certain threshold or have to do some certain mechanics, or else basically the whole party wipes. Do I like this type of way they're going with the new monsters? I don't really know. I think Alatreon is a good fight. I think he's a really fun fight. His moves are I wouldn't say predictable, but once you do know them, you're able to read them very easily. Elemental Threshold, from what I found from the most recent runs I've been doing, even this run, as you can see, most people can hit the that Elemental Threshold. Most people have built their sets around it. Even using just a plain old Dragon Elemental set, you still do quite a bit of elemental damage, and easily enough to hit that. I've not done this fight solo, so I can't really comment on that, but I guess we will see overall what Capcom will do in the future. Frostfang Barioth is coming out pretty soon. People have been able to find him because of workarounds. Technically, his data is already in the game, so you can find him already technically on PC. So he doesn't seem as crazy as a fight, but I'm sure people will enjoy his fight. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk a little bit about Alatreon. A lot of people did hate its fight originally. I haven't seen as much hate anymore. Those petitions where that wanted to nerf Alatreon have kind of fell aside, kind of fell into obscurity. Not a lot of people really put too much focus on that or really care too much. And there aren't a lot of threads anymore about Alatreon. Most people have figured ways to combat Alatreon. And most people, I feel like, have completed his fight now, and as you can see, most runs typically end in success. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit today. I didn't touch on all the topics I wanted to say, but generally, that's kind of how I felt for Alatreon. I do think he's a good fight, like I said. I do think he's a fun fight. I'm interested to see what's going to come next after Frostfang Barioth. We'll see. Some people are speculating Fatalis, and that's probably most likely. I don't really see them adding any weaker monsters. We're kind of nearing the end of Iceborne's life, so I don't expect anything crazy like Gormagala or Volstrox from like Monster Hunter Gen. That I feel like they're going to save for the next game, especially those lower tier monsters. There really isn't a reason why they should add them this late into Iceborne's life. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Leave your comments below what you thought of Alatreon, and I will catch you guys later. Peace soup.